I'm the founder CEO of Brass. At Brass, we provide financial operation services for local businesses, both in Nigeria and right now in Kenya. So that's what I do. Thank you.
And how have you had to adjust over the last 12 to 18 months to the market conditions?
I mean, we also had come in the last, we went through the bull period. So obviously you know that when after the bull, there comes the bear, right? So for us, immediately we started seeing the signs, we shifted focus from growth, from just constantly trying to grow and to more of revenue at that point, because we realized at this point there's going to be a need for balance for us to be sustainable. Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we can hand over to Tosin.
Hi everyone, I hope you're having a good time. My name is Oluwatosin Olasende. I'm the founder of Money Africa. Money Africa, in one word or in a sub-sentence, we are the evangelist for money. So in terms of over the past 12 months, what have we done differently? We're basically just trying to upsell to our current market. So we've always educated people about money. Now we're trying to educate their children as well, right? So just basically trying to get more money from our current users. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tosin. And I will pass over to Shola from Vendees.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Adeshola Aleogo. I work with Vendees. Vendees is a food tech business, and what we do is we help food businesses thrive. You can buy from us. You can buy really anything from us. We have a platform where you can place orders for anything that you need to run your business, and then we also offer buy now, pay later services. So we just really help you keep the business afloat. That's what we do.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And last but not least, Dami, if you could just introduce yourself and Ventures platform also.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Damilola Teidi Ayola. I am the head of platform and networks at Ventures Platform Fund. And Ventures Platform is a discovery fund. We invest in amazing founders. So if you're building something, I have an idea, you can come to me. We invest in amazing founders building really great solutions that are solving problems on the continent. Yeah. And the other question?
My other question was, what are the tactical things that you've had to adjust or adapt to given the market realities of the last 12 to 18 months?
Okay, so as a fund, we're different from...
Of course.
Yeah, entrepreneurs.
The investor on the panel.
Yeah, so it's... I wouldn't say much has changed. We raised, we closed our fundraise last year, and where we raised 46 million. We invested a lot last year. We're still going to invest this year. If anything, you know, the market has sort of calmed down to focus on what is important, which is like due diligence and following due process, you know, which is what we've been doing. Yeah. We still want to be able to invest, look for new companies and find new companies to invest. We want to be able to reserve capital for follow-on for the companies that are doing great within our portfolio. So I wouldn't say much changed. It just came down to...
Back to fundamentals.
Yeah. The fundamentals, exactly.
Exactly. And I actually didn't have the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Amandine. I'm the COO of Paystack. Paystack is an online payments company. We actually enable some of the businesses here on stage. We basically just want to help African businesses grow. And we think that the first step to doing that is online payment acceptance. And so, yeah, it's really a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I think the topic at hand is something that is very much top of mind for a lot of founders, a lot of operators, a lot of investors, particularly given we don't know how long this turbulent bear market is going to last. So I thought what I would do is maybe just split the conversation into 3 sections. So we'll talk a little bit about people and people retention and adapting to that during a bear environment. And then I'll talk about product development or product offering and ask a few questions to our panelists. And then lastly, we'll move on to fundraising and just thinking about how to adapt fundraising mindsets and tactics given the current market environment. So we can start with people. And I thought I'd start with our people operator on the panel, so Shola. So really just as we think about people retention, what have you done very tactically or strategically to retain your top talent given that there are so many changes happening at the moment. What's your advice to people, ops professionals or operators who need to balance growth, their business growth, but also headcount projections and hiring? How do you balance the two of those?
All right, thank you. So one of the things that, I joined, hello, okay.
Yep.
I joined the startup environment sometime 2021, December. And what I have learned is to be very flexible as an HR professional. There are boundaries, there are some formed rules on how we should practice certain things. But I've learned that being in a startup and in the world that we're in, we need to be flexible. And really, everything that we've done is around that. So, for example, our own challenge in the last 1 year would have been the Japa syndrome, right? Where we've lost people leave the country. And it's not really about you as a business. It's the fact that the country is not very pleasurable for a lot of people right now and they just want to leave. So what we're doing is, if you have to leave, you can still continue to work with us. So we're looking at partnering with some global talent management companies. So for places where we do not have those presence and we can operate legally, we partner with them and they can help us with hiring and managing our employees over there anywhere around the world. So that flexibility is there, as opposed to just say, oh, because you're leaving us, that's the end of the relationship, especially. And then if I can quickly add, what we also do with regards to retention is we hear more often from employees now. We don't keep quiet. So we don't wait for exit interviews, for instance. We hold stay interviews more often. We hold surveys more often, and we want to know why people are with us, what would help us keep them, so that way we're able to respond to all of the changes and challenges that come. Okay.
So does that mean that Vendees has actually moved to a remote workforce, if you say that people can move and work from anywhere in the world?
It's a combination for us. We have employees whose jobs, for instance, the guys that go to the markets for us, they can't work remote.
Of course.
And then we have the tech guys who have fully remote jobs. We have those who are hybrid. So it's really knowing what works for what job and then adjusting fully to it.
Yeah. And from a budget perspective, how does that work? Because if someone is moving to Canada, you probably have to adjust their salaries, even if you're using an employee of record or a professional employment organization, a PEO, EOR. For those that do JAPA, how do you adjust to that as a business from a bottom line perspective?
Okay, to be honest with you, one of the things that we ensure that we do not limit ourselves with is, if we can afford it, we pay. Because we've realized that the market is competitive. Yeah. Right? I always say that for pay, you have to be able to afford it first, and you have to be able to sustain it for a long time. And so if we can pay, we pay. So we also always try to know what the value of a job is out there, what are our, not really competitors, but we look at the space where the person is operating, what would an engineer in this company earn, and we look at how we can balance things out. And the most important thing as well, beyond the pays, what are the prospects for this person within the company? We make it clear, and like I said, we just continue to know what's going on, and we're quickly able to adjust. But we actually play safe so that we don't want a case where we pay somebody this month, the next month, and we're not able to sustain it.
Yeah, no.
So that comes to play as well.
Absolutely. Tosin, Shala, I'm wondering if, with Money Africa or BRAS, you've also had to adjust to this kind of JAPA reality, how you've been able to retain your talent, given how easy it is post-pandemic to work from anywhere in the world.
Hi. All right. So from my observation, people attract each other. You're the 5 closest people to you, you're like a sum total of that. So this is what we do. We can't compete with everyone. So for instance, one of our team members got poached by Bloomberg UK. We do not have the funds to compete with Bloomberg UK. But what we did is we asked her, if someone was to take your role, who we will bring? So we literally make them to recruit on our behalf. And once you establish such a good relationship, they give you enough timeline. So that person that was poached by Bloomberg UK, she gave us roughly about 4 months. That's very generous. So we have enough time to do training, transitioning, amongst others. So we know that we can't compete with certain firms. So what we want to do is, shoot the case they have to go. We want to create a pipeline that eases the new people, into it. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, interesting. And Shala, have you had to rethink how you're retaining your top talent?
It's very similar to Tosin. We've had instances where some of our top talents left the company. We have someone that joined Facebook. I mean, I can't cooperate with Facebook, obviously, right? And
In Lagos or outside of Lagos?
outside of Lagos, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a couple of our talent joined Facebook. Someone joined Facebook. Another of our talent joined one very top crypto company, making 200K and above. We can't afford that.
Of course.
But what we've had is that when we are dealing with people, we realize the relationship with them is more than money. So oftentimes we try to establish that. And so when most of these people try to leave, it's always a case where they give us a good heads up. Because I remember the case of the guy that left for the other company. This guy told me about the offer almost 6 months. He almost lost the job because of us, as a matter of fact, because he was working with us on some things. So the relationship is very important. So oftentimes before they leave, they try to refer people to come and fill up their space.
Yeah.
And in
So
some
it's similar.
cases where we can't just afford to let you go, we have another case where we can't just afford to let you go. You're working on something very critical. We try to work something out.
Okay.
we really try
Got
to work
it. That
something
sounds
out.
slightly mysterious, but
Yeah, we try to work
that's
something
good.
out in that case.
And maybe my last question on the people retention aspect, I might ask Dami actually, because you see a lot of different portfolio companies in your role at Ventures Platform. And I'm curious, we've seen a wave of tech layoffs in Silicon Valley, in the US. Do you think that that's maybe going to come to the continent?
I think we've seen similar layoffs as well on continent. The thing is, what happened
The
in
scale is different.
Yeah, exactly, it's different. But what happened in 2021? Everyone was, hiring for
Yes.
different reasons.
Yeah.
Some people stayed true to the fundamentals, but some, things grew at that point in time, and they felt like, oh, we needed more people to be able to push certain things, or they raised a lot of money. And so now that the market has come down, a number of people, we've seen portfolio companies that have laid off staff, whether it's quietly, sometimes there's no noise about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And it might, continue to happen, not the messenger of doom and gloom. It might in some cases where companies have no other choice or have realized that, we made a mistake, we made an error, we need to be able to cut people. But you have to do it in a way that is empathetic. That's
Yeah. Actually, that was
Can I
going
just
to
say-
be, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
just want to add to that. I mean, being in the space myself,
Yeah.
layoffs have been happening. It's not just outside of the country. And I think that one of the things that people can be very deliberate about in the startup is to properly plan the workforce.
Yeah.
So because we have investors' money, we need to quickly hire people. We need to scale up as quick as possible. And so we just hire. And we realize maybe at the end of the year that we didn't need this many people. So maybe we need to learn to take that step back, to plan properly. Know what jobs we don't even need to hire somebody full-time for. Some jobs can be done, maybe contract basis. Once
Yeah.
that phase is over, that
Yeah.
person can easily leave the system as opposed to just laying off continuously.
Yeah. And maybe since you are head of people ops at Vendy's, what would be your tips or your advice? Like, what's the nicest way, if you do find yourself in a position where there's no other solution and you do need to lay off some people, do you have any advice for people in the crowd it's probably one of the hardest things that you'll do as an operator, as a head of people. Is there a right way to go about it?
Yes. First of all, I think that every organization should have a policy around layoff. That first would deal with certain things. But if it comes and you didn't have a policy around it, talk to people about it before you actually act on it. So maybe have a town hall, have one-on-ones. And then when people are leaving, let them have some comfort that there's something that they have to go away with. And let them, I think the transparency is what is always missing a lot of times. Let them know why this is happening. And so what they take out there, which will also affect the brand reputation, would be clean enough, So that aspect is important in managing layoffs.
Yeah.
And
Demi
just
wants to add, yeah.
I know some people might be thinking that because, you had the likes of Facebook, Google, Meta, some people were just sent out of the office or they disconnected their emails. Please, not all of us can try that. So I know that she's saying, there are steps to it. And if anyone is thinking, oh, but I can just do this because some other big company did it, we don't have the same, strength in that sense or brand. And you have to be able to protect your brand. And that's both those that are working for you and those that have left.
Those that have left, so that they can continue to be an advocate even though they have left. Yeah. Great. No, thank you. Thank you so much. I know it's something that's very topical. It's also probably one of the most difficult decisions to make as an operator, as a founder, just managing headcount and your workforce. So appreciate all of your insights. I'm going to move on to product offering. So I'll go to the product guy, to Shola from Brass. And I'm just curious, have you had to change or adjust or refocus, realign the specific product offering or product development, your roadmap, just to coincide with how the market is currently, what the current market dynamics?
Oh, thank you very much. So Brass is a very product company.
Yeah.
We build a bunch of products every now and then. So since the beginning of the whole trend, we've had to pause the development of some products and have to ask ourselves, hey, look, we need to focus on the existing product we built. We've had to figure out ways we can optimize revenues across all of these products. Because of the dynamics of the market, you really don't have you don't want to spread yourself too thin.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you have 6, 7 products that are making money. You probably just want to double down on those products and do more and do more with less, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you've just had to refocus
Exactly.
in terms of
I told my team
going deep versus
exactly
going broad.
go deep versus
Yeah.
because earlier in the year I remember I telling my team, like, for the next 18 months we are not launching any new product apart from the ones we've built.
Wow. Okay.
So we are pushing. There are some products right now that with engineering. After those products go live, Brass is not trying to build anything big any longer for the next 18 months.
Yeah.
So that's how we're thinking about all of this.
Yeah, okay, no, that makes sense. And I guess you're building for SMEs, right? And often SMEs are the ones that are the most affected by cyclical market dynamics. So
Yes.
in terms of pricing, like what you're actually charging for your products, or in terms of your go-to market, your distribution strategy, how have you had to adjust that with the current climate?
A lot. So many of our customers are somewhat medium businesses, small businesses, and they've become very price sensitive.
Sensitive, of course.
Every single thing you do today, you have to sort of like look out for how would this affect the customers that you are serving. But the other way we've sort of like also tried to structure these conversations for our own customers is that we try to make them understand how much they stand to gain, how we can effectively grow their business, how they can make more revenue. So as we charge you, we try to make sure using our product is a net positive. So we provide you with the POS terminals, we provide with capital to grow your business. Because in these times, for instance, a customer might need to, make ends meet their payroll. They need, say, about $100,000 in capital loans. So you give it to them so that they can extend their own runway. So that's how we're thinking about all of these things.
Yeah.
For
No,
us.
it's actually it makes a lot of sense that some of your products are actually, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of being able to build. Exactly.
You need these products to grow your revenue.
Exactly.
Anyway.
No, that's really, really interesting. I'm just curious if anyone else on the panel has had to make some strategic shifts in terms of the product offering or the product development, given the market dynamics.
Not me, but I just wanted to emphasize what Shola said, because Shola is the products guy.
I know. Shola is the product guy.
don't
That's why I
know.
called on him first.
Even in the fund, we say Shola is the products guy. So if Shola is saying that they're narrowing,
Refocusing, exactly.
that says a lot as well. But yeah.
Yeah. It's actually something, we've done the same thing at at Paystack, we realized at the end of last year that we were actually working on a lot of different initiatives. And as we started 2023 and we were thinking about our company goals for this year, we've actually narrowed down and really refocused our roadmap, and we're going very deep on a few products versus trying to roll out too much with too little.
Because you lose the capacity to be able to do well in many of these products, and there's really no point if you won't be able to do something you'll be proud of.
Exactly. And I think a lot of us are operating in fintech, and fintech is nothing without reliability, right? So you're literally dealing with people's livelihoods, and if you can't go deep and have like very excellent product market fit and a very excellent product or value proposition, then you'll lose your customers. So it's become even more important, I guess, in this market environment.
And I think there's also a caveat there, because there are people that, might be in the stage where, because Brass and, Paystack, you guys are later stage companies. But there are people that are in that early stage, because I've seen companies that are still pivoting at this time.
Yep.
I've seen companies that are trying to add maybe one more product to see which one works. So again, there's always that, what do you call it? There's always that difference that, okay, yes, you should focus. I think the main thing is if you're going to experiment, you have to weigh the costs. If what you have is currently working and there's still opportunity to dive into that, then do that. If you're not sure it's working and you want to test out something, you need to sit down and say, what's the cost of doing this experiment? What's the cost of branching out versus because of what the market is saying? And that's why it's good to have this conversation. So I think that's just something to note, depending on the stage that you're in as well.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly add something. I just thought of it while she was speaking. So one of the things that we've also tried to do around product management properly is we no longer build products that our customers don't need. So we visit our customers more often. We get feedback on time. So before we think of a new thing to come up with, it's because a customer or some customers have shown that they actually need it, as opposed to just putting products out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I think I had one last question, probably more for Tosin and Money Africa. So you run a savings and an investment platform, and I'm just curious, like, how has consumer behavior changed in this market? Are people even still saving? Do they still have the means to save? How has that changed for you?
Interestingly, they're being more cautious. So whenever people are cautious, what do? They stack. Yeah, so you're also seeing them lean towards low risk, right? They want to go towards something comfortable, something they can extract for. It's almost as though you're just waiting, right? So also not thinking long term, so just more like caution. So we're seeing lots and lots of caution. So you'll be seeing things like short-term savings, emergency funds, 1 year savings, as opposed to things that they want to do for like 3 or 5 years. So that's what we're seeing them leaning towards.
That's super interesting. And so have you had to adjust your messaging to your customer base?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I mean, if you look at the data, about 72,000 people moved to the UK over the past 1 year. Some of them were users. How are you speaking to them? You start talking to them, like those that had dollars with you, do you want them to exit with their dollars? Those that have some naira still in the country, how do you message that? So the messaging is very, very important. Also, another thing that we are doing, we're going very, very heavy on preaching long-term investment and people also investing in themselves. So during a downturn market, your biggest asset really, how can you quickly transition into something else? How can you build skills? How can you can't invest money you do not have. So messaging are, usually along those lines for this period.
Okay, but are you still trying to encourage longer term planning? Because everything you've just said seems to me like longer term, even though you've said the demand is for short term, safe investments.
It's so interesting. Like earlier today, I was having a chat with someone, right? If you're admitted in the hospital, I noticed that the nurses, whenever they give you your pills, they stay there with you because they want to watch you take it. Because for some reasons, people throw it underneath the bed. Now, we can go and preach, beg, show long-term picture, but people are still going to do what makes them sleep at night. So for instance, for lots of young people, maybe their priority now really isn't buying a house or buying land. But guess what? Their parents have done that in the past. They've always bought land. They will lean towards it. So we can only teach, and we hope that, they align.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Welcome.
I'll move on to my last topic or my last theme for this afternoon, and then we'll open up for questions afterwards. But I really wanted to deep dive a little bit on the fundraising environment. And luckily, we've got operators, founders, we've got an investor in our midst also. So maybe I'll start with Dami. What would be your advice? How should operators be thinking about fundraising right now? How can they be trying to extend their runway? What should the mental model be in terms of fundraising in a bear market?
I think we started talking about it a bit with
I know,
Shola
exactly.
saying,
We had a very interesting debate offline.
and even before this panel session, so we'll probably touch on that. But one thing that I mentioned earlier was that counting cost and looking at what you're spending on, where are you unnecessarily spending, right? It means that you might, there are some people when things are great, or some companies, your card is left on many different solutions that you might not be using on a monthly basis, and they're just charging you. You can optimize from there. You can look at staffing. If you can't lay off people, it's like, okay, how can we collectively do more with what we have, right? So you're either cutting or you're optimizing your cost, right? That's one key thing. And there are a number of companies that are already doing that, even in like conversations that we have, right? And if they're not doing it, we try to beg them to do it. The other thing is also, what are you focused on, right? It's like, I think Shola, someone was saying, there was a time we're focused on growth. Now we're focused on, deep diving. There is, earlier in the year, we're in a session with Adia Soho, is marketing CMO of MTN. And she was saying there's output vanity metrics and there's input metrics.
Yep.
So it's like, what are you really focused on growing that deep down is going to change your company? You need to, double down on that. I was talking to a company recently and I was like, okay, we're adding users. All right, but how active and engaged are those users? Like once a month. And this is a product that ideally people should be using like 3 times a week. Yeah. So it's like, okay, what are the key things that would lead to someone being more active? Okay, this, that. And why are we not focused on that as well, right? Instead of just every month, we've added 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. That time may have passed. Now, if you want to raise more money in the future, you have to show that your numbers are actually growing and the right numbers are growing. And you're not spending lots of money getting people on board, and then you're losing them, so your churn rate is high, which means you're losing them as well. So these are some of the things that companies can look at. One, cost cutting where necessary, cost optimization, as well as also paying attention to the key things that matter, the fundamentals, right? And, maybe I'll leave Shola to add.
I'd love Shola to just repeat what he was telling us earlier, because I was very impressed with the diligence. But how do you think about extending your runway at Brass?
For us, it's we pay a lot of attention to average revenue per user, how much we can make per every customer. So it's possible you can have, say, 10,000 businesses, 50,000 businesses. How many of those customers are paying you on the average?
Yeah.
And what is that amount?
Yeah.
So for us, if today our average revenue per user is $5, can we take it to $10, $15? Is how much you can make per this customer that matters. So paying attention on how much value you can squeeze out and seeing the cost of acquiring that customer, you sort of like have to place that side by side. So we're paying a whole lot of attention around that singular metric.
I see. And so you actually have precedence on average revenue per user versus just unit economics on a specific product.
That is also very important. So like I always talk to my financial controller about this. We never lose money on a customer. We must never lose money on a customer. So if it's going to cost us 5 naira if it's costing us 5 naira, then we are selling for 7 naira. Let's do the standard, the way I know.
Make more money than it's costing.
Exactly. We don't lose money on customers. So what that means is that our absolute expense is just the standard salaries and running the business. But no matter how much we scale our business, no matter how much we add our customers, if it's costing us, say, 2,000 naira to acquire a customer, we need to figure out how to make that money back in less than 3 months.
Okay, that's your magic
Yeah,
number,
we need to
3
make that
months.
money back in 3 months.
Okay,
So
got it.
generally for us, it's like there are some very important metrics that we pay attention to. What is the cost of acquiring these customers? How long will it take us to make that money back? And how do we increase the revenue per this customer month to month?
Okay, amazing. And in terms of your extending your runway, what's your mental model? Like you need to be able to cover how many months?
Yeah, so I was telling you earlier before we came on board, right? I think depending on the stage you are in as a founder, right? You know, if you are a pre-seed company, maybe you've raised less than $500,000.
Yeah.
I think you need to make sure that you, especially like for us, we didn't go to any accelerator, so we just consciously knew we have no money
just
to.
had the ideas
We
and
just
you
have no money to throw around.
executed
So
superbly.
at pre-seed, our net burn, we try to make sure it's less than $10,000. And when we got to C stage, we made sure that our net burn at any point in time is less than, and then we raised about $1.7 million, was always less than $30,000. So for us, it's like, at every point in time, we need to be able to raise 1 year of runway easily.
Yeah.
So I can raise 1 year of runway in less than a weekend.
Yeah.
So that means the company will never die.
So that's your mental model. Okay, very, very interesting. I'm curious, maybe Tosin as the other founder, how are you thinking about fundraising? What's your mental model? Are you in wait and see mode or, yeah?
Okay. So we have 2 companies under our brand. One of it is profitable, does good. The other one is in its growth stage, and it was very important to me that we raised some money for that last year because fundraising is very distracting, and I don't want to do any of that this year. So at least for the next 1 year, I'm happy that we don't have to go back into the market. We can focus on getting the job done and actually just grow the business. So that's what we did.
Okay, amazing. Anyone else have some final closing thoughts on fundraising or tips for the audience?
I think just maybe to give some context around it or why we're talking about these things is like last year, you had some investors pull out of deals, right? Sadly. Yeah, so they said they were going to invest and, they just changed their mind. And they cited economic issues. So as we're all hustling, everybody is hustling. And then you had some people had to raise lower than they wanted to raise. So I went out and said, I want to raise 1 million. And you just couldn't find the 1 million. Had to stop at 500,000 or something. And like you said, fundraising is hard. Like it's long and just takes a toll. And if it drags longer, you just know it's not happening. Some people raise at a lower valuation than before, which is what they call a down round.
A down round,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. So this is the context. And some people say that it's going to continue. So some have said, it's going to continue. Some investors are watchful. Is this the last stage of this economic downturn? Is it going to come up or is it still going down? Now, when an investor is not sure whether it's going to stay at this level or still go down, then they are just overly cautious, right? Maybe they are spending more time than they should. Okay, one thing that we've said at VP is if we can't invest, we let someone know really early. 2 weeks, we should know whether we're interested or not. Then we continue the process, right? And then we optimize as well for seeing a lot of deals. So while some people are unnecessarily slow, we know that we have to be cautious, but we don't have to be unnecessarily slow. So it's just good to put that context in mind. When people are talking about extending the runway, deep diving, managing your costs, it's just that everywhere is tight.
And when do you think the market will come back? $1 million question, Dami. As the investor, when are you going to start writing checks again?
No, we are writing.
You're still writing?
Yeah, we are writing. Okay. We're writing. We're looking for new companies in new verticals, in new markets. We're looking at pre-seed, seed, and then we're following on as well, which is important because we have companies that will do well, and we don't want them to unnecessarily struggle. Yeah. Right? If they're trying to raise, if your numbers are great, let people not really waste your time if we can come in and help. Yeah.
Amazing. No, thank you so much. We'll open it up to the audience, but I think like just one closing thought from me is I think some of the best companies in the world were actually created in downturns. I think in every bear market, in every difficulty, there's actually a lot of opportunity to create something of value. If you think of Uber, if you think of Airbnb, they were all created in the Great Recession, 12 years ago. So I'm actually super optimistic. I still think we're just scratching the surface. I think there's still going to be incredible companies that are going to be built in Nigeria, in Africa, solving really great problems. And yeah, it might be a little bit harder at the beginning, but it's also just an incredible opportunity for innovation and growth. So yeah, I'm curious if there are any questions from the audience for our panelists. We've got about 10 minutes left. I don't know if we have any microphones. Yeah, we have a microphone. There's one question here at the back. And there's a question over here also. It was at the back of the room, and then there are two more here. And if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself.
Hi, my
Yeah.
name is Mina, and I wanted to ask Shola, as much
Which
details-
Shola? There are two Sholas.
Shola, I can-
Okay, Brass Shola.
In as much details as you can get into, how did you run experiments to test what customer segments are profitable for your business and what solutions work well for those customers?
Did you get the question? It was
Okay.
about like how do you experiment on which customer segments are the most profitable for you, right?
Yes.
How do you know which customer segment is the most profitable for you? You talked about unit economics or revenue per user. How did you get to the segment that works for Brass?
For us, I don't know how to say this.
Luck.
Well, I sort of like, we like to bid for rich people, pretty much. So when it comes to
Can we say sophisticated users?
sophisticated users, so if you don't have money, Brass is probably not for you. So I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
So
You
for
should
us,
be
it's
transparent.
like when it comes to businesses, we are more interested in businesses that are doing well, like medium business and above. So we try not to play in the micro businesses space because it's kind of hard for us to figure out how to spend so much money building sophisticated products and we won't be able to extract value for them. So what is the point? And we are not playing the consumer space, we are not trying to build for students, we build for professionals.
Yep.
So in every category we try to play, it's more like if they can't afford this great product, we shouldn't target them. So we shouldn't try to, it's more like, we are like that product that we try to build for more sophisticated users, sophisticated businesses.
And so what is a medium business for you? How do you define a medium-sized
A
business?
medium business could be like a big restaurant. Like we have
Okay.
some very big bars, big nightclubs. A medium business could be, a very big shopping mall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we
great.
could probably give them like 15, 20 POS terminals, things like that.
Okay, amazing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, by the way. I think
Yeah.
like you build products for users that can pay for the product,
Exactly.
right?
So
You have to build
if we can't
something
make
that
money
people will
from
pay
you,
for.
if we have to, because our products are not cheap,
Yeah.
so they are not cheap. So
Yeah.
there are probably cheaper equivalent out there in the market, and that's fine. I don't think we are meant to serve everyone. So
Okay.
we don't deliver free products. We just think it's not going to be cheap for you to have. If you need the cheap version, I would recommend them for you,
Yeah.
gladly.
And it's actually still a very underserved part of the market, that medium-sized business,
Yeah,
the
medium-sized
restaurant
businesses,
business.
and for consumers,
Yeah.
just professionals. No, yeah.
Okay, amazing. I think we had a couple of questions here in the front. Victor has one.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Victor Fatomi, consulted for tech CEOs on the side of Ford Canvas, and now I'm one myself on the side of Full Gap. There's something I'm very curious about in terms of how the layoffs recently have been executed. I had a close preview of one particular example in Nigeria where the leadership would in fact give the team an idea that, don't worry guys, don't be afraid. I know there's a lot of anxiety, but everything is fine. And then went ahead 1 week after and did lay off people. And then there are other versions of that. And I'm just curious, why are people, leaders, kind of not ready to give people an idea that we're in a difficult times we might be laying off. My speculation is probably because of the fear that it might affect productivity or everyday excitement. If people think, a layoff might be coming, maybe they start searching for new jobs and it reduces their productivity. That's my theory. So I'd like to hear from you guys. What's
Who
your
wants to
position
take
on
that one?
Okay.
People ups.
Okay, so this is a very, very tough conversation, let's be honest. And you asked the question, why are leaders? I'd like to say, and this is not to shade any founder, right? A lot of times, people also need to learn leadership, and that's the truth. Many times we have people who are founders, they're business owners, but they haven't really learned the skill of leading people. With leadership comes maturity, comes the ability to be able to hold tough conversations. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to exit, you as an employee can decide to leave me tomorrow. My business would have to continue. And that's why we talk about things like succession planning, who's next, who's watching, or who's learning from this person. So I think that ability is missing. And founders, as we grow our business, as we raise funds, as we try to scale up and all of that, there needs to be that deliberate effort to also learn how to lead people in such a way that even as, I remember when I was in a what's it called now, an FMCG, and they had to do layoffs. It was communicated. In fact, people got to the office that morning, those that were affected couldn't log into their systems. And when they saw that they couldn't log, they just told themselves, oh, it be like I said they don't fire me. You know? And even though it caused a bit of chaos, but because people knew, that sort of helped ahead of time. People knew that it was a restructuring. People knew that people were going to be affected. I think that transparency is a big issue. And I always say this, people would always leave organizations. Why they leave, when they leave, is what we should focus on. So if, as a founder or as a leader, I know something is about to happen, there's a way you can prepare people. Maybe not completely put it out there. Emotionally, intelligently address it. But you can give it a time frame. But not to tell people, oh, everything is fine. And then the next week, they're laid off. It's not easy on the part of those who are executing it as well. People might think that it's easy. It isn't. But that deliberate effort to just, people need to learn to hold tough conversations. And then how can you compensate people if they have to lose their jobs? What happens to them? Just showing that we care really goes a long way.
I don't know if anyone else has anything to add.
Thank you, Victor. I think sometimes I have a few friends that have had to lay off people in these times. And I don't think anyone wakes up to just do those type of things. Sometimes it could be a case of the founder themselves or the CEO, the team is trying to close one big deal that they really believe that if we just close this major transaction, we'll buy ourselves 6 months of runway. Or they are in the middle of a fundraising and an investor is telling them, I am going to send that check in by Tuesday next week. I promise you, I will send you that $2 million. Wallahi talai. And Tuesday, you keep calling this investor and it's not answering your calls. And then Friday, he sends an email, says, I'm so sorry, but I'm checking out of this. I can't do this deal. And so, there are some cases of bad actors, but there are some really genuine cases where the CEO himself actually thought he's going to be able to pull it off, but he just couldn't pull it off. And then the reality hit him and say, hey, it's one of the things. He said that we shut down this company, or we just have to cut off half of this thing. And it's always a very difficult decision to make. But what really matters oftentimes is if you run a company where you do things like you are always having one-on-ones with your teams, every of the leadership members or the team leads, they're always having one-on-one with their team members. You can sort of like send that message across in a very informal way that, hey, things are getting tough and we need to sort of like adjust very soon. And there was also a case of having some level of empathy where before you make that list, you sort of like, oh, we need to lay off maybe 15 people or 30 people. you start talking to other friends of yours that might be in hiring mode and say, hey, look, I'm about to lay off some people. Do you need designers? Do you need software engineers? Do you need product marketing people? All of these things are very important in making sure that these people, but I can tell you most of the time, it's not out of bad blood. It's
Yeah.
not like
It's not personal.
the CEOs most of the time actually thinks he's going to pull it off. And then he's like, oh shit, I can't do this.
Yeah. I think just to summarize some of the themes I've heard is intentionality. I think hopefully layoffs would be a measure of last resort. And so if you really are going to do it, you have to be intentional about who and how many and why. The second thing is empathy. I've heard from both both Sholas actually. And the third one is clarity, the reasoning behind it. And I think some of the best layoffs that we've seen in the last few months are actually those that the CEO has publicly explained why and given very rational explanations. So it's not even an emotional decision anymore. It's a very rational one. And there's a certain kindness that comes with that clarity and transparency. So, yeah. Thank you very much. I think we are basically out of time. So if you wouldn't mind just around... No. Can we take one more question? Let's take one more question. Okay, we're out of time, but I think we'll squeeze in one more. There's a microphone just next to you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dumebi. I'm a lawyer at ULaw. My question is actually directed at Damlola. So you mentioned, obviously, we all know that this is a very cautious time for investments. So what is it that you look out for that makes you eventually sign the check for startups? I mean, it's not one general thing, but what are the key things that convince you to give money in this tight economy?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one, and with every fund, they have something called their thesis and the sectors that they invest in. So one of the key things is we look at companies that fit our thesis. We spoke to a company recently that seems like they'll be doing great, but honestly, we can't defend it, that it will fit our thesis, so we don't invest there, right? The other thing is that if it's a very young company, so pre-seed, we look at the quality of the team, right? As well as we sort of think ahead as to how can this company grow? Because investors are essentially also, they have investors, so they need to report back. So if you think of yourself as an investor that is holding other people's money, how would you look at a business, right? And then if you're at the growth stage and you already have numbers, we look at the numbers. We look at the fundamentals. What's your revenue on a monthly basis? What's your burn rate, like he was saying? You know, if you're in SaaS, for example, if you have users, are they dropping off? Is your churn rate right? Like we look at all those things. And then we look at the future as well and say, what are the possible scenarios that this company can be in the future? If it looks great, then we put in money. We also have to defend it, by the way. So we put the defense together. We pitch it to, you know, you have like internal committees as well. And once everyone is aligned on it, then, you know, the money goes out.
Thank you so much, everybody. And maybe just as a final plug, it's been wonderful to host you all for this discussion, this really enriching discussion today. I just wanted to flag, Paystack does have a startup program where we actually help enable startups and help them accept payments, particularly the early stage startups that may need pre-processing, at least for the initial months. So if you are a startup founder, if you are looking for online payment acceptance, I think there's a link just behind me. So feel free to visit and to sign up, and hopefully we can help you grow your business. But otherwise, thank you, Dami, Shola, Tosin, Shola. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights.
Thank you too. Thank you.
It's been wonderful hosting you.
Hello everyone, please as we're leaving, you can check around and make sure you're not leaving any of your belongings behind. Thank you very much.
I'm pretty sure it's Techzilla. Techzilla.